Hi. When we look back on 2020, we will remember this year as the year of the pandemic. We will also remember 2020 as the year of Black Lives Matter, a turbulent year, especially in the United States, a year in which many people feeling oppressed and disadvantaged rose up in protest against the system. The system. Many activists are talking today about systemic racism, systemic discrimination, systemic marginalization. They're crying out for justice, asserting that the systems are rigged against them, and they are agitating for systemic change. Here in Kenya, we hear people talking about the deep state, a system that purportedly is the real power behind government and even determines the outcome of elections. So, what exactly is this system? What is this system? Who is this system? Let me begin by making a few quick points about systems. First, let me say that we all need systems. We operate and function within a set of rules and laws and traditions that help us to coexist and to provide us with orderliness. Can you imagine how chaotic it would be if we didn't have established rules and regulations that govern what side of the road you should drive on, or who should give way at a roundabout? We have established systems that determine who can print money, who can fly an airplane, who can prescribe medicine to you when you're sick. We have economic systems, security systems, political systems, and systems that define how governments in certain ministries are supposed to function. Second, systems are not an end in themselves. Systems exist for the purpose of achieving some end objectives. My third point is that systems are created by people. They are also changed by people. A system that serves one situation may not be suitable for another setting or situation. The point that I'm making here is that we're not slaves to systems. We create systems to serve our needs and not the other way around. They do not hold us hostage. Once in a while, something happens that wakes us up to the need to take a look at the systems that we have established or that we have created. In some cases, we discovered that the circumstances that gave rise to the system have actually changed, and there is a need for another system. In other cases, we come face to face with the truth that the system itself is not faulty, but it's the people who have the privilege and the responsibility of managing the system who have misused that privilege and have made the system dysfunctional. I happen to be an accountant by training. Accounting is a very systems-driven discipline. For those of you who know accounting, you will know that there are many systems of accounting. A large organization, for example, will have an accounting system that is very different from a small business. The system of accounting that is adopted by an organization is designed to deal with the complexity, size, or nature of the organization. The purpose of having an accounting system in an organization is to create an orderly way of recording, reporting, and analyzing the results of that organization's activities. I remember an incident some years ago with an NGO that I was serving as a consultant. One day, the management discovered that money was being lost or being stolen by a staff member who had found a way to take advantage of the weaknesses in the system to embezzle funds. This breach required that the system be changed in order to ensure that the loopholes were closed. And I remember wondering to myself, was it really the system that was the problem? Or was the problem the wicked and corrupt intent of an individual who had been entrusted with the responsibility and privilege of working within the system? It sounds like a simple question, but the answer is not so simple. Because in truth, without an appropriate system, the organization may never have found out that they were being robbed. And yet, even with the best system possible, the organization was not safe from those who intentionally set out to defeat the system for the wrong reasons. And so it is with our societal systems. We see leaders abusing their offices for personal gain. And so we call for change. We demonstrate. We talk about systemic change. I would go as far as to say that in most cases, the problems that we face in society have less to do with the systems that we have created and more to do with the heart of man. Systems don't hate people. People do. Systems don't discriminate. People do. Systems don't steal. People do. Kenya's political journey over the last few decades illustrates this point very well. As some of you will remember, back in the early 80s, Kenya effectively became a one-party state. It was a decision that was made in order to unify the country. It came after a very difficult and frightening coup attempt. The then president, Daniel Arap Moi, decided that the best thing for the country was to establish the country under one party. Few people at the time argued against it. But over time, we began to see how, as they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We began to see abuses of office. So much power had been centralized at the executive. People were being detained without trial. We saw human rights injustices that were rampant. Worst of all, we saw corruption out of control. And so people began to agitate for change. People said, what we need is a pluralistic system, a multi-party state, a state in which there are differences of opinions, where there's an opposition. And for about a decade, there was rancor, there was demonstration, there was a fight for this pluralism. And eventually we did get that. Many people celebrated. They said, our solution has finally come. But had it? At the end of the 90s, as the multi-party era came into its fullness, and the monolithic party that had been running the party was thrown out of power, we began to see the country disintegrate into tribal enclaves. You remember, by the time we got to 2007, 2008, the country literally went to war with itself. So much property was destroyed. So many lives were lost. And so again, people began to clamor for a change in the system. They began to clamor for a change in the Constitution. What we needed was to reduce the power at the center, devolve this, so that we could be able to have a system that works for the people. And in 2010, indeed, we got a new Constitution. But it wasn't long before people discovered that what we really got was a new document. The character of the nation remained intact. Over the last 10 years, and we have just been commemorating the 10 years since that Constitution, we have seen mass looting of public resources. We have seen tribalism at play. We have seen a country that is disunited. And once again, many people are asking themselves, what is it that we need to do? And again, we begin to hear people saying we need to go back to referendum to solve this system, because the system is the problem. And I say, really? We can write new laws and build new institutions. We can change political parties, create new positions. We can write new constitutions. We can demonstrate. We can go to the streets, go on strike. We can destroy property in rage. And then we discover that the problem with a dark and evil system is not the dark and evil system. The problem with a dark and evil system is the silence of those who know better. A system that is dark and evil and oppressive to sections of the society will remain dark and evil and oppressive if we remain silent. Perhaps hoping that somehow, someday, the darkness will just somehow lift and things will get better. Revolutions don't happen when society adopts a new technology or system. It happens when society adopts new behaviors. And behavior only changes when hearts and minds are illuminated. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that. Shining a light in the darkness requires courage to stand up and speak out against the wrongs that we see. Your voice matters. If you are neutral in a situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. You cannot control what other people choose to do, but you can choose to be different.